Welcome back. 16 minutes after 7 o'clock. Congressman Pete Sessions of Dallas, one of those calling for changes in security, at least a review after the shooting of a fellow member. He's live at the Capitol in Washington, joining us on the phone. One of your colleagues, Chris Collins of New York, planning to pack a pistol. That's not going to fly inside the Capitol building or presumably in the district, which has some of the country's toughest gun control laws.
Well, I would say why not? If we're a target, if people have now assumed across the political spectrum that members of Congress will be treated differently, then we need to understand that. Tim, the bottom line is, for a number of months, there have been huge changes, not only in the reaction of the public towards members of Congress, but there have been huge reactions in norms that have changed where people simply believe it's okay to scream and yell and rant. Part of security changes and review that I'm looking for comes as a result of me understanding that Mike Bost, who is a member of Congress from Illinois, actually heard from this man a number of times with rants and conversations that were not pleasant for his office there in Illinois. Well, guess what? That's happening to almost every single Republican member of Congress, where we have multiple people, I believe, doing the same thing all across the country, following, as I talk to them, the same methodology, the same process. And this guy then shows up here and does what he does. But yes, we have to be careful.
Yeah, obviously you've got to be careful, be aware of your surroundings. But is the best answer a bunch of middle-aged men and women who might or might not be able to handle a gun all shooting back at this guy, or a trained security force, which is a very, very expensive solution?
Well, all I would suggest to you is that I am not saying we need to have everybody has a security detail. That's not what I'm suggesting. Nor am I suggesting, as Congressman Collins has, about we all carry. What I would say is the people who are trained and properly vetted could receive the proper training to protect themselves. We are in circumstances on a regular basis that would demand that I believe that we're not, without the ability to protect ourselves. I happen to think it's a right that we have to protect ourselves. Others simply look at it differently, right. but a member is entitled to protect himself, I believe.
It's funny to me that in the state of Virginia, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, in the state of Virginia, you can carry a concealed handgun. It's considered your constitutional right by the state of Virginia. Cross into Washington, D.C., and the constitutional right ends at the district limits?
Well, and once again, and you and I did engage in this, Congress sets those laws. And the constitutional right, Washington, D.C., as you know, has a different set of circumstances, but they are not a state. A state, a federal law applies to a state, and Congress has simply chosen that we are going to try and respect the wishes of the District of Columbia. It could be that we do decide in this process to allow members to have reciprocity, just as I would have in Dallas, Texas. So I think that's the direction we'll end up going, reciprocity, as opposed to you can just carry in Washington, D.C.
Right. Thank you very much. And again, best wishes to everybody back there. And thanks for I know it's long hours and it's exhausting. A lot of people don't give you all credit for the time and effort you put in, but thanks for your efforts.
We just want an equal and fair opportunity. And Tim, the way you speak about this has a lot of how people back home think about what we're doing too, and I appreciate and respect your insight.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Appreciate you.